Hello, my name is Marissa Lopez, and I will be presenting stress and anxiety within children. And the main reason why I chose this presentation was because of my own experience when I was growing up. My parents didn't really know much about anxiety. They did know about stress, but they never confronted it head on. They always put it off to the back burner, and that's what they did with my stress as well. And so I definitely wanted to give more information to parents and for their children and how their children may be experiencing anxiety and stress and the preventative ways of overcoming those symptoms. So here we go. So objectives. We will define anxiety and stress. We will also describe what the biggest stressors for children are, and then provide information to manage symptoms of stress and anxiety. Okay, so in this slide, we'll be identifying anxious feelings, and it's just an activity or a YouTube video that I provided here in the slide. However, I don't believe that I'll be able to actually click on the link and pull it up. So instead, whenever you're able to, you can just click it after this presentation or even before and view it. However, right now I really just wanted to go over the basic outline of the story and how it corresponds with this presentation. So there's this little fox named Hunter, and he gets lost when he's trying to go home for dinner. And he can't really find his way, so he starts to hyperventilate and he starts to stress out a lot. And during his time going home, he actually finds fireflies that he thinks are little balls of fire, and that just makes him stress out a lot more. And then comes along a little owl named Eve, and she's basically the voice of reason for him. She helps him just begin breathing exercises, such as taking a deep breath in, holding it, and then releasing it a couple of times, and that really helps him. That gives him more level and clear head, so he's able to find his way home. She also helped him with that as well, but the moral of the story is just being able to breathe during stressful situations, and even anxious situations too. And I definitely had my fair share of those. There's this one incident that really struck out for me when I was creating the presentation, and I knew I really wanted to incorporate it. And so my mom and dad, they weren't doing the best whenever I was like 7 or 8, I do believe. And it came to the point where I was staying at my mom's house for a couple of nights each week, and then also going over to my dad's and staying a couple nights there. And so, I don't know, at one point, I remember just crying my eyes out during the middle of the night, a couple of weeks into their separation, and it was loud enough to where my mom could actually hear me, and she came into the room and she started to hold me and embrace me into her arms, and that felt great. But I just couldn't stop thinking about like the eventual doom of them actually going through a divorce. And so I told my mom that, and she took me and hugged me even tighter, and she told me that it wasn't going to happen. They were just taking the time out to reevaluate things, and then she started to tell me how to breathe and what actions I needed to do. So, such as telling Hunter to take a deep breath in, hold it, and then release it. And that really, for this video, it really just stuck with me, and it reminded me of that situation. And eventually, after I believe it was like 6 months, my parents moved back in together, and they didn't get a divorce. She was right, but yeah. So for me, breathing in and just continuously having like deep breaths help so much whenever I'm like struggling or stressing out about something, feeling very anxious. And so I highly suggest doing that. But this also covers for parents and how they're able to help their children whenever they're having the same symptoms that I was having, such as hyperventilating, having very terrible thoughts, dooming thoughts. And so the breathing definitely helps. So, and we'll also get more into the symptoms of anxiety and stress, and then also how to prevent them as we go along. Okay, so for the rationale, this is just a couple bullet points that we're going to be going into detail about. So one is parents help or hinder stress and anxiety levels in children. And also learning how to control stress in children can benefit their future, such as understanding that stressful situations, such as like taking a test or preparing for a game, is eustress, and so it's positive stress and can really motivate them to do the best on whatever their minds are set out to do. So it's like understanding that some stress is good and then also other stress is bad. But we'll be going more into how some of the negative stress is or may impact their future. And then when stress evolves into anxiety, there are steps to address symptoms. And I just wanted to cover a little bit of the Longo article that we did during the first half of our course. And that just states a child's commitment and stress levels are often controlled by a parent or other influential adult. Children typically welcome such events as birthday parties, field trips, and organized activities may not recognize overload. Therefore, setting a child work boundaries early so that they maintain a healthy workload later in life is highly suggested. And that just goes like with the stress and everything as well that I was talking about. So for parents, being able to manage their children's overall life and lifestyle regarding the activities that they do is highly suggested. And then in some ways, we can also ease anxious and stressful feelings through like meditating, having doing physical activity, or even arts and crafts. And this is more pointed towards children. Of course, parents are able to do this as well, but it's just being able to get the child's mind off of their internal thoughts and focusing more at the external and physical environment around them, and just realizing that they have everything else to look at and have things going on instead of inside of their head. So here, I wanted to incorporate definitions of anxiety and stress to basically break down the terms to their simplest form. Anxiety is a fully loaded word, meaning that it has different impacts on people and different definitions to them when they hear it. Such as for me, I picture foggy thoughts that I can't seem to clear, and basically I would define anxiety as overwhelming emotions, thoughts, and difficulty breathing. Although these are some things that are associated with anxiety, the actual definition here is a feeling of nervousness or unease typically concerning an uncertain outcome. And then the same thing can go for stress as well, regarding just a state of panic or very hypertensive kind of situations. But stress is defined as a state of mental or emotional strain or tension resulting from adverse or demanding circumstances. So, therefore, in simplest terms, it's an overwhelming feeling for both. So, overall, these two definitions will definitely help with the upcoming slides that I provided. And just to make sure that we do understand just a basic outline of both subjects that we'll be going through. Okay, so here we have statistics for ages 5 to 11 years old, and I just created a couple of bullet points just to go over some of the statistics of the chosen age range. And so 7.1% of children 5 to 11 have diagnosed anxiety. And since being diagnosed with anxiety, children 6 to 11 increased from 5% in 2007 to 6.4% in 2011 to 2012. And according to the American Psychological Association, 20% of children report worrying a great deal. And many children have fears and worries and may feel sad and hopeless from time to time. So, like, strong fears may appear at different times during development. For example, toddlers are often very distressed about being away from their parents, even if they are safe and cared for. Although some fears and worries are typical in children, persistent or extreme forms of fear and sadness could be due to anxiety. And so these kind of fears could be along the lines of, like, somebody dying within who means a great deal to them, as an example. And unfortunately, parents greatly underestimate their child's emotions. Only 3% of parents rate their child's stress as extreme, while 33% of kids experience headaches in the month prior to the study. 13% of parents thought that these headaches were stress-related. So it really comes down to the parents communicating with their children about their day-to-day lives and just what's going on, such as at school or with their babysitter, and just examples such as those. Because eventually, after a certain amount of time, all of that will just come to a fine point in the child's life, and they'll eventually have like an anxiety attack. And at that point, it's very crucial for parents to understand what is going on with their child. So these are just a couple of statistics to understand what impact virtually or realistically parents have on their children. Alright, so we're going to be talking about stressors in children ages 5 to 11 years old. And the first stressor that I made a bullet of was parents who overscheduled their children in bed stress, and then children overhearing parents' conversations about work, illness, or arguing are also stressors. And then stress may come from disturbing images on TV or social media. The first bullet I can definitely relate to. So my experience with my mom, she has always been either refereeing, coaching, or managing volleyball throughout her life, and so she really tried to get me into the same sport as her when I was younger, so around age 10. And I didn't really want to disappoint my mom, so I tried to continue to go to like the summer practices where it was open to basically, I think, age 5 and up. And I tried to work out with all the other girls and better my technique, but I wasn't able to, and I really wasn't ready. And so instead of telling mom initially, I just continued to try and push myself, but she made sure that I was on time to every single practice. But at the end of like possibly a month, I was overworked. I wasn't able to better myself with my schooling because I was trying to do like online learning sessions for like math and English, and so I really wasn't that into it, and I didn't want to disappoint my mom. But eventually, after that month, I definitely came to the realization of, well, this isn't what I want to do, and so I did speak up to my mom, and I told her what I wanted to do, and she was disappointed, but at the end of it, it was my decision. And so I really appreciated her taking into consideration how overwhelmed I was, and overall just being able to express myself to her. And so the more that parents are able to hear what is going on in their children's lives, as well as understand and recognize those symptoms of just seeing your child being stressed can definitely help alleviate your child from continuing to feel stress and get them out of those activities. And I really believe that if you're telling your children, like, I don't know, conversations like I was saying about work, illness, and arguing with their significant other, it can definitely dampen their mood, and they may hold in a lot of things internally. And so, again, it may come to a point where they just stress out and they might not even cooperate with anything that you're telling them because of how stressed they are. So it's very important to keep in mind when you are a parent to understand just what you're putting your child through. Managing stress. So this goes over what parents should be able to do with their children to help manage their stress and their symptoms. And so parents should play with their children, help them develop hobbies, encourage children to get enough sleep, and limit their screen time. And of course, there are many more activities and things to do with a child who is under stress. Thus, parents' involvement is needed to help take the child's mind off of whatever it is that they're worrying about. So talk about how very important with your child, how very important it is to emphasize their overall mental health and their mental well-being. Because at the end of our lifetime, it's generally what helps us to continue to go in life is our sanity and keeping our mind functioning and able to work through problems that are hard, but by taking a step back, we're able to solve those problems. And so playing with your kids or helping them develop hobbies, and especially sleep, are great things to implement when they're young so that they can also implement later on in their life to where they can help manage their own stress after they become more independent. Alright, so here we're going to be talking about anxiety symptoms in children 5 to 11 years old, and we're just going to touch base on how they may feel through, say, like an anxiety attack or the build up to that. And they may feel nervous, worried, or overwhelmed, shaky or jittery, scared, afraid, or upset, and even may have a shortness of breath. And a lot of people that I've talked to, as well as videos that I've seen researching the anxiety part of this presentation, they really focus on like the mental aspect of anxiety instead of the actual physical features that happen or that take place whenever you become very anxious. And in this illustration, it really shows like what can happen. So like shallow breathing, muscle tension, tiredness, less energy, and it really drains you. So I kind of just wanted to point that out, as well as give an example too. So my sister-in-law had an accident like this past Christmas where she went off the side of the road due to a winter storm accident, and my dad had to go out and find her and then take her home. And during the whole time, she was hyperventilating. She was having a terrible anxiety attack. And whenever her dad picked her up and drove her car back, he was able to help her through all of those symptoms that she was feeling. And again, it was through just breathing, just doing deep and slow breathing exercises. And eventually, she was able to just get out of that state of being anxious. And so, just as what Eve did to help Hunter in the little animation that I explained, that was exactly what he did. So later on, or in the next slide, we're going to be talking about how to relieve these symptoms as well. Okay, so now we're going to be managing anxiety. So this is where parents should help face their child's fear, lend a listening ear to have them talk about their feelings, encourage them to take small steps forward, and meditate with them. And in this sense, I really wanted to incorporate a therapist or a counselor into the mix. Just talk about how they may help too, instead of just the parents. If you do go to a professional, just make sure that you, the parent, of course, are with the child, so that you can have a deeper understanding of basically what the child goes through questions that the therapist will ask. And from this, I just wanted to go into what the parent may ask. So the parent should ask therapists how they can help their child practice at home, and also praise their child for efforts to cope with fears and worry. And then help your kid talk about feelings, even listen and let them know you understand, love, and accept them. That's a huge thing too, especially for me whenever I was growing up. My mom would definitely enforce that whenever I overcame like a fear. And a caring relationship with the parent helps your child build inner strengths. So just like that. And then encourage your child to take small steps forward. Don't let them give up or avoid what they're afraid of, and help them make small positive steps forward. So just small little steps, like say they're afraid of bugs, and first off, you can just tell them, like, well, why don't you look at them? And that's kind of like a step into the right direction of getting rid of their fear. And finally, be patient, such as meditating with them. It takes a while for therapy, as well as just talking to them, to work for your kids to feel better. So they generally don't have like an understanding, the younger that they are, of why you're talking to them about, like, well, how are you feeling, how are things doing, and things like that. They're just thinking that you're asking questions, but overall you are trying to have a deeper understanding of what they're going through in their life. And so even meditating with your kid is really good, because you have that one-on-one time with them, and just practicing like breathing and happy, more positive thoughts. Okay, so for this activity, it's coping mechanisms. In the activity provided, check off the coping tools that will help you overcome anxious or stressful situations. So, and then also use a sheet for children to manage their anxiety and stress. So this can definitely help with coping with stressful occasions, like flying somewhere for your child, going from one place to another in a plane, just providing different activities for them to do, as well as just planning out your day also to keep your mind off of what you're worrying about. For me, I would actually, let's see if I can do this, I would actually check off smile and laugh a little bit more. I would also want to make some art. I'm definitely into painting at this time. And then my husband and I love to sing, and we make just little not music videos, but singing videos for our family. So, and then I go into more, but those are just a few examples. And then also just incorporate that into your daily routine. And eventually this is just better for you and your child to just cope with different anxieties and stresses that are going on in your life. Okay, and now we have the closure. So we learned that anxiety is defined as a feeling of nervousness or unease, typically concerning an uncertain outcome, and as well as stress, which is defined as a state of mental or emotional strain or tension resulting from adverse or demanding circumstances. And basically everyone has their own perspective on what stress and anxiety mean to them, but breaking the words down to their true definitions help us understand what steps we need to take to limit the nervousness, unease, and restrain tension. And then we've also learned that parents have an impact on their child's stress levels, such as stressors. This is whether they're overscheduling them, talking about stressful situations to them, such as a relative's illness, or them even failing to limit social media. And then finally, we can manage symptoms of stress by parents playing with their children, developing hobbies with them, encouraging them to get enough sleep, and limiting their screen time. So overall, I love this presentation. I love giving the presentation, is what I meant, and I really enjoyed learning more about the subject of anxiety as well as stress too, and just the main symptoms of it. And I really hope that I've helped parents as well as you learn more about child anxiety and stress. So overall, thank you, and I will catch you next time.